I'm going to need a bigger koozie. Yes, you will, NASCAR guy. Let's get ready for Sonoma, next on Racin'-n-Braisin. Well, hi, folks. Welcome back to Racin'-n-Braisin. I am CJ, a lifelong NASCAR fan and chef, bringing you plenty of news and analysis from each race weekend, as well as a couple of tips and tricks from my kitchen to yours. Today, we're going to get caught up on some news from a busy week in NASCAR land, as well as give you the schedule for this weekend's action in Sonoma and talk about what I'm looking for when Cup teams take the track. Finally, we'll round things off with what I'm thinking about for my menu as I watch the race on Sunday. So let's dive right on into things and get caught up on the news of the week. It's been a busy week in the news world. We'll start off with how NASCAR responded to criticisms from last week's Chicago race. We all know, myself included, were unhappy with the way that race was officiated. The Josh Berry incident that took 2 laps for them to finally call a caution on was disappointing. And what was disturbing was definitely the way that they did not respond immediately to the Cody Ware incident. Well, Brad Moran, the race director, was on SiriusXM this week and talked about how NASCAR handled the cautions throughout the race and admitted that, yes, they missed the Cody Ware one and made a major mistake on that and will definitely make corrections going forward. Unfortunately, I've heard that before, and I think we all have heard that before. Think about Charlotte Roval last year when Parker Kligerman had a win taken away from him because of a car in a tire barrier that NASCAR didn't even see. Well, I do want to credit Kyle Dalton on Beatin' and Bangin', a NASCAR channel here on YouTube. He did some digging and went back through and found the X-Post where NASCAR, before the Chicago race, was showing their grand war room and how they were going to watch and officiate the race. And yeah, there was a camera on turn 6. So nobody was watching. And that's very, very unfortunate. The apology has been accepted by many. Me, not so much. I'm not ready to accept this one this time through. I need to see better out of NASCAR going forward. History says they're going to continue to make this mistake, and it's very unfortunate. Speaking of, unfortunate, the TNT broadcast last week was unfortunate, and Dale Jr. was able to address that on his podcast, citing a couple of factors that led to the difficulties that TNT had covering the Chicago street course. One, they have a new director and basically a whole new team there at TNT that has not done NASCAR before. Yes, TNT has had NASCAR in the past, but it's a different team that's working at this time. So it was definitely difficult for them to adjust and broadcast to a really difficult track to even view. I think what made it worse this past week, and this is something that NASCAR can learn from as we continue this street course era, is that there wasn't really a press box or officiating box on the track. I don't even think there was a window from the booth to the track to see what was going on. Everything was viewed through the lens of a monitor and cameras, so there was really no true eyes on the track. So the broadcast was absolutely reactionary. I'm assuming that's not going to be the case this week. Sonoma, well-established track. Everybody knows what to look for. There's plenty of precedent to look back on to get ready for this week. And of course, there's that big giant tower there along the front stretch for them to be able to actually be present and view the race from. I am really hoping we see a dramatic improvement from TNT this week. Thank you, Dale, for addressing that. Speaking of the street course, there was a curious debate sparked right here on Racin'-n-Braisin from the post-race video that I posted on Sunday night. First and foremost, thank you for all of the new subscribers and for everybody that commented about it. The big debate has been whether or not NASCAR needs to have this street course. Some people say absolutely not. We need to get more focus back on the tradition of NASCAR, the ovals and the occasional road course. And then there's others that are embracing it and saying, hey, look, this is actually how NASCAR started, on the beach and streets of Daytona. So this is nothing new, and let's go ahead and embrace this concept. It shows a whole different skill set, and is absolutely worthy of being on the schedule. I kind of fall towards that side in a sense, but I also want to recognize NASCAR's marketing viewpoint from this. It gets new eyes on the sport by introducing it to an area that wouldn't go out of their way to necessarily go see a NASCAR race. With most of the NASCAR tracks, you have to travel from a main area to get to it, and it's not right inside, the city limits. So this brings the show to the people that are, maybe not necessarily exposed to it. And we all know that once you go to a race and experience the thrill of it, experience the vibration, smell the tires and the fuel, and feel the racing around you, and hear the sounds, and enjoy, the people watching that you get from being at the track, you get hooked. So I say kudos to NASCAR for going down this route. Maybe Chicago's not the best venue, but this, from what I heard this week, this year is when the city of Chicago and all of the people in Chicago finally started to embrace the street course and figure out how to make it work for them. So maybe everybody takes those lessons in the NASCAR community, and wherever they end up next, which we all think is going to be San Diego, they take all of these lessons and apply them there, and we have a fantastic show. I think it's clear that the street course is here to stay for the foreseeable future. It's just going to be a matter of where. I personally am a fan of kind of tag teaming with IndyCar when they set up the street courses for places like Long Beach or Toronto, or even Detroit. I'd be open to that. I think that would be a really cool experience and a great way to expand North American motorsports in general, if we can team up with IndyCar. Lastly, in the news, two things that I want to cover real quick. First, 2311 and Front Row Motorsports lost their appeal for injunction on the case to keep their charters this week. So that means as early as next week, Dover, 2311 and Front Row Motorsports could be racing as open teams and no longer chartered teams. Both of those teams have said that they are able to complete the rest of the season without having to worry about the charter per se. What it's ultimately going to mean is lower purse money for them throughout the rest of the season. The main trial is set for the off season, sometime December, January timeframe. And I'm sure that if those teams win that case, there's probably going to be some back pay or damages or whatever that they're going to get back. I'm sure that's what they're hedging on. And finally, real quick, The Clash will be returning the Bowman Gray for 2026, February 1st on Fox. I'm good with this. The Clash at Bowman Gray this past year was good. It actually produced some good short track racing. So I look forward to the return and hoping that it will also produce a great show. All right, guys, that's enough news. Let's dive into this weekend. Let's start off with the schedule for Sonoma. 3-day show. ARCA will be out there. Their racing will be covered on Flow. Xfinity is going to get things kicked off on Friday with practice and qualifying at 4 o'clock on the CW app. Then Saturday, we're going to have Cup practice and qualifying on True TV at 1:30, followed by the Xfinity race at 4:30 on the CW. And Sunday, the Cup Series will have the Save Mart 350 at 3:30 on TNT. What am I watching for this weekend? Well, a couple of things. Of course, we're going to be looking at SVG to see if he can go 2 in a row, see if he can win his third Cup pole on third road course in a row. That would tie a record set by Jeff Gordon back in the 90s. As of right now, there's only 3 active drivers that have wins at Sonoma. Kyle Larson has 2, Kyle Busch has 2, and Daniel Suarez has 1. No other active driver has wins on this course. So we could have a new winner. Chris Buescher has finished top 5 in the last 3 Sonoma races. Chase Elliott and Ross Chastain have had top 10s in the last 3 Sonoma races. So they're definitely ones that I'm going to be keeping an eye on. I'll also be keeping a close eye on Michael McDowell this weekend. I am sure that he and Spire Motorsports are ambitiously trying to bounce back from an unfortunate weekend in Chicago. And then finally, just something to note as the race goes on, the driver leading the most laps in 5 of the last 6 Sonoma races has gone on to win that race. So we're going to see some dominance. That's generally the theme of the Sonoma race. We're going to get a leader. There's going to be probably 2 to 3 pit stops throughout the race. There will be a fuel strategy, fuel gamble at some point, but I don't think we're going to see any major shakeups unless for some reason there's a ton of cautions. I'm not expecting that. This is Sonoma. It generally doesn't have a bunch of cautions. We're probably good for the 2 stage breaks and maybe 1 or 2 more beyond that. Keep your eyes on SVG. Keep your eyes on Michael McDowell. Don't rule out Kyle Larson or Kyle Busch for sure. Daniel Suarez might be a player, but I'm not going to be too high on him personally. And I am also going to be keeping an eye out for Ross Chastain, Chase Elliott, and Chris Buescher this week. So let's wrap things up with what I'm thinking about for food on Sunday. When I think of wine country in Northern California, I reflect back on the one time that I got to visit Napa Valley and went to a couple of wineries, and in their shops, they always had quick bites available. So tapas style, charcuteries, stuff like that. So it got me thinking, what kind of influences does California have? There's huge Asian influence, and what would be a great quick bite? Spring rolls. So I think I'm going to make some shrimp spring rolls with a ponzu sauce, and probably show you guys how easy that is to put together. Keep an eye out for a quick how-to video sometime this weekend as I put together some spring rolls. Well guys, that's going to wrap things up for us here today. I hope y'all are ready for Sonoma this weekend. We'll do a recap of what we saw in practice and qualifying on Saturday and give us a better idea of who to pick for Sunday. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you can get all of the latest episodes of Racin'-n-Braisin. And again, thank you for joining me here. Stay happy.